We begin with a tense standoff in Hong Kong between riot police and pro-democracy protesters at a university, where demonstrators have barricaded themselves inside the Polytechnic campus for several days. Now, before dawn on Monday, police entered the grounds and they were met with a barrage of petrol bombs and arrows. They responded with tear gas and water cannon.
Most alarming, deadly weapons were used in the Polytechnic University, which has become a weapon factory, as well as a refuge for extremely violent rioters. The development so violence has reached a critical level. Rioters have so intent to murder our officer at all costs.
Now, later, a number of demonstrators fled the university's buildings. Several people were arrested. It's unknown how many remain inside. And there are large groups of people on the streets of the city reportedly making their way towards the university campus. Let's go now to our correspondent, Rob Mcbride. He is joining us live from Hong Kong. So what's happening there now, Rob?
Well, just as you join us here, Elizabeth, there has been a fearsome clash between those protesters who've been gathering close to the university campus to try to be in support of the besieged students, and riot police, who have used their water cannon and also a huge amount of tear gas. And the front line of this protest has just broken, and people have just come back, many of them coughing, spluttering from the effects of the tear gas, and they have fallen back to this square, and the police are now pushing through that barricade, and we can expect, I suppose, another encounter. I think the ferocity of the water cannon and also the amount of tear gas took many people by surprise. You're seeing a lot of people here, Elizabeth, many hardcore activists who've got all the gear, but also we've been seeing here a lot of people who've just had face masks, young people, almost families, you suspect. And it almost feels like some of the protesters, at least, seem to be coming out for the first time. A number of them seem to volunteer. They help out moving bricks up to the front line, which then get thrown at the police. They've been helping to pull up the bricks off the sidewalks here. And we've also seen, as you often see at these protests now, in a little group away from the other protesters, covered by umbrellas to try to disguise what they're doing. But basically, it's a little petrol bomb factory where they make Molotov cocktails. Now, these protesters have fallen back on a number of sides, and I would estimate there's a good couple of thousand people here on this Monday evening. This is a tactic that they have adopted in support of the students inside the campus, that they put pressure on police, they cause trouble in surrounding streets to try to take pressure from those who are besieging the campus, maybe in the hope that some of those protesters are able to escape. We haven't seen that so far today, Monday. Many protesters have been arrested. But that's a situation here at the moment, as we just wait to see how this develops further. Elizabeth?
And Rob, I know that you don't have access to some of the pictures that we can look at. And in the last hour, we have been seeing extraordinary pictures of protesters. It looks like they're abseiling down from a bridge to evade police, who have been making a number of arrests. And it's extraordinary that people are still coming out in their thousands after they've seen the water cannon, the tear gas, and the arrests.
That's right, absolutely. You do get a sense of, you don't want to use the word revolution. That's a word that's used by these protesters. That's obviously a very subjective word, but it certainly does at times have the feeling of some kind of an uprising, at least, that at times you sense the anger, the emotion. Having said that, it has to be said there are many people who think this will go nowhere in Hong Kong. It's only going to anger China, and it ultimately will lead to Hong Kong's demise. But you can't tell these people that on this particular evening. As I said, we are now into the mid to late evening here. There's no sign of this crowd diminishing. And I just want to see where the police are up to. As I said, they broke through the first defensive line. The protesters were pushing up anything they could find to try to stop the water cannon. And one thing they were pushing up were very large street umbrellas. This is an area of a number of quite fashionable bars, eateries. People can eat out on the street, and people were using those umbrellas to try to fend off the water cannon. Well, obviously, all that does is it just creates more resistance, and you get washed away with the water cannon, and that's what we have seen here. Many other protesters are calling for people to stand firm. We've seen one or two firebombs being thrown, but I have to say this is quite a dangerous situation here. This street in Kowloon is a very narrow street. There are lots of streets in Kowloon like this. They're actually quite fashionable. You've got lots of boutiques here. I can see one or two Lexuses and Jaguar cars. And we have quite a nice hotel here with an awful lot of very bemused hotel guests and tourists stuck in the lobby looking out and wondering just what on earth is going on here on this particular evening. Elizabeth?
And Rob, it's very hard to imagine with the pictures that we are seeing how those local council elections that are due for Sunday can take place in an environment like this.
Well, the government is still insisting that they will go ahead. Lots of people here want it to go ahead because they believe it's one of the few barometers of how people really feel about what's going on at the moment. It's a district council election. It should be about bread and butter issues like who cleans the streets and the water supply and things like that. But everybody knows that in this highly charged political atmosphere, it will be anything. It'll be anything but bread and butter issues. It will be just about how this place should be run. So everyone will be looking to see how people vote. Will they vote for the candidate that says stick with China, get off the streets, let's restore law and order, or will they go vote for the people who are saying we should have more autonomy within China? It's our right. It's enshrined in our basic law, our mini constitution. And as you join us, we look now, people seem to be trying to move back up, but police are shining their lights down here, their strong lights. And what they've also been using, which we hear occasionally, are this so-called non-lethal ammunition. It's things like rubber bullets, paintballs, that you hear them thwacking through these umbrellas. And sadly, these are the things that do cause quite bad injuries among the protesters. But from the police point of view, they have said repeatedly that if they are facing Molotov cocktails, which they regard as lethal ammunition, they are quite within their rights, they say, to use live ammunition. Elizabeth?
Rob, thank you for that. For now, that is Rob
McBride. Lost you, I'm afraid.
No, Rob, thank you for that. That is Rob McBride with the latest live from those protests in Hong Kong. Well, let's move on now to Georgia, where riot police are moving in on protesters near the country's parliament.